G'day listeners, today we're joined by former Mayor of Merri-bek, Lambros Tapinos from the Labor Party. We're looking forward to chatting about how the Greens are a terrible party and should just get out of the way.
Again, green bashing. Oh my God.
I didn't bring it up.
Just did.
No, but like that's...
How do you know we're going to talk about that?
It's likely to occur.
Okay. You always talk about the Greens.
It's as though we
We've got a Labor guy and you're going to talk about the Greens again.
I didn't bring it up.
You always bring it up.
It's good. Anyway.
All right.
I am just going to listen as we talk about that. Someone else is going to bring it up.
All right. Well, maybe Labor might bring it up.
We're also going to...
Did you get kicked out by the Greens?
I did, yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see.
We are also going to chat about... the ongoing developments in Brunswick, how it's becoming...
And Bhutan?
Well, we didn't chat about Bhutan, unfortunately.
We've got the armaments yet?
Not yet. That's coming. We'll have to chat about that next episode. But anyway, so we're also going to chat about getting involved in local government, some of the interesting characters we meet in the campaigns. We might chat about the Simpsons. Don't get away too much. Okay. Anyway, let's get going. G'day listeners, welcome to My First Party, the podcast where we meet people changing the grassroots of politics in Australia. I'm Owen Miller, I'm a candidate for the Fusion Party. We're joined as usual with Peter Cargiotis, Baron of Brunswick, as he's known locally. Lambros, so it's been about a year since you finished up.
Yeah, almost exactly a year.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting actually to not be a councillor. I've been a councillor for 16 years. Wow. So the last year has been a bit different. But I've had an opportunity to do different things and get back to studying and get back to work and other things. So yeah, about a year of not being on the council. So a bit of a landmark.
What are the signs you see around Brunswick that, things have sort of gone to shit now?
Yes, without me. No, I noticed it's going to be a steep decline for the suburb. No, look, of course, when you're a councillor, even if you stop being a councillor, you don't stop thinking like a councillor. So when you walk around Brunswick or right across Merri-bek, you still actually start thinking about, how can this change? How can this be better? And I've got to stop myself and thinking, okay, no, I don't need to report that to the council or taking notes on a little pothole here, I can get that fixed. It's not my job anymore. But yeah, you still have a look at things and you apply this sort of council lens over the suburb. So I've still got that habit, but I've lived here my whole life, so I know the area really well, and I still care about the area. So I still do take notes, and I forward it on to the current councillors.
I guess as well, when you say, you don't have to, report the pothole, it's not your job anymore. Do other people know that? Do you have to tell these people, not my job?
No. Look, I still get a few calls.
But to that point about the job, can you maybe, and again, I'm saying this from a totally ignorant perspective, now that you're not, but how much did it impact as a job, a role?
A lot.
So what?
A lot. Yeah, a lot, especially in Brunswick. So you do have councillors in other regions, in other municipalities in the region of Victoria, that don't get the same volume of traffic as far as emails and phone calls as what councillors do in Merri-bek, specifically Brunswick. So I don't feel that you could do the job part-time in Brunswick. You really can't. Like, if you're going to do a good job and be available and make time to go visit people and understand the issues and then report that back. So both being engaged in community, which is so vibrant, so diverse, so many community groups here, as well as all of the change that's happening, which is really detailed, the planning aspects, as well as the placemaking stuff. It's so dynamic. You can't do that part-time, where if you're a councillor in a small council, perhaps you would not be as busy. So for me, being 16 years on the council, it's been a year that's been quite relaxing, actually, because so much of my life has been on council. So
can I ask, this again, I don't really understand the role. So is it a full-time job?
No, it's not.
Like, that's what I assume.
No,
because it's not paid as if it's a full-time
job.
job.
That's what I'm assuming. So how does someone do it effectively?
Yeah, it's not paid enough.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that means that people need to balance their time with work and family and their civic duties. And that's a real shame, because quite often they make sacrifices and the community misses out. So you can't go to everything, to every community event, And there are some councillors who can't pick up their phone during working hours, or they can't go to a meeting that occurs during the day. So all of this is a balance, but for me, I think that people don't really understand what councillors do, how important it is, and the time constraints. So this is one of the challenges, I guess, for local government.
I guess actually, when you're talking about being very busy as a Brunswick councillor, I guess it's probably worth mentioning. We have some listeners in like the US, for instance. It's to clarify like how politically active Merri-bek and Brunswick are. So like Merri-bek Council, for instance, they were flying the Palestinian flag for like the last 2 years. People are very politically switched on, I think.
They are, and they always have been, and that's the history of the suburb, right? So famously, it's been called, when it was in Moreland, the People's Republic of Moreland, and that history and tradition is alive and well, and it's always been here right for the last century. So going back right through to when John Curtin was active in the union movement and running campaigns, anti-war campaigns for World War One and anti-conscription campaigns, right through to Noel Cunahan, who we have a gallery named after, who ran the free speech sort of campaign in Brunswick. So all of that history is still here. Our community is sort of continuing that legacy.
Although I guess, but despite these people being so active, does much change? I mean, in the federal election in May, we got Peter Khalil for another term, more Labor. When was the last time it wasn't Labor? I think it was Phil Cleary.
Phil Cleary.
Back in early 90s,
Yeah, so there was a time period there in the early 90s when Phil Cleary was the member.
That was post-Kodak. That was post-Kodak.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, it was a different economic time. So there were different issues back then. And it was a by-election, and Labor was in government. It's always difficult to win a by-election. So there are certain circumstances. But
he got re-elected though, didn't he?
He did.
The next general election, I thought. Yeah,
he did. Yeah, but his first introduction was a by-election, and then he followed that up and got re-elected.
I guess for listeners who aren't familiar with like Melbourne sort of politics, so Phil Cleary,
ex-footballer.
Ex-footballer, and one of the main things for him was domestic violence. So his sister was murdered when she was, I think, like 20 or so, maybe younger.
Yes, that's right.
And so making sure that there was more justice in the system for that sort of event was important to him.
And a really strong community advocate for domestic violence, and he still does that work, and he does a really good job at bringing people together. The families of victims and survivors of domestic violence and violence against women, and he has the Vicky Cleary Day, which is an event at Coburg Football Club every year, where he talks to players and the community at large about violence against women and attitude change that needs to happen in order to prevent that and start addressing that issue, and for men to start taking responsibility as well, and calling out sexism and violence and things that sort of can lead down the path to more aggravated assaults, and how do we sort of address this issue and take responsibility for it. So he's a great community asset, I would say, Phil, and he's still very active in our community. And he was the member. He was a progressive member of Parliament.
But to your point, though, like it's been a long time.
But that's the reflection of the community. It's a progressive community that wants action, and it votes Labor for that reason, I guess. And,
there's a different discussion.
And when you have an active
Tony Blair Labor,
when you see governments actually delivering, I think the electorates reward that, and I think that's what we saw. We saw a really hard-working local member, Peter Khalil, a progressive Labor government led by Anthony Albanese, and the community by and large was like, we are happy, and we're happy to give this government another term. And I think that was reflective across the result, but you might disagree.
Let's go with that.
Empirically, 100% correct. The fact that the political and electorate system is geared up to have either a blue or red donkey going through the past the post is a totally different discussion. And then what Labor introduced to ensure you know, how minor parties are working even harder in the future. That's a different discussion.
For argument's sake, let's go with this theory that Will said the local federal electorate loved Labor. Lambros, let's step back a bit. When did you become political, and when did you decide
That is a good question.
Labor?
Well, he's a Greek boy. So.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I think we've grown up in the same kind of families.
Yes.
Mine probably maybe a little bit more left than his.
I don't know, actually, because it was my mother who was a member of the Labor Party in the 70s during the Whitlam days. And
my godfather's a Stalinist.
okay.
Touche.
Oh, okay.
Well, my grandfather fought in the Second World War and in the resistance movement. That was very much aligned with that sort of.
It's not a competition, Lambros.
Oh no, it's part of the story.
Yeah, 100%.
What people don't realise is that what brings us here. I mean, it's my family.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So it is the fact that my grandfather was discriminated against in a period of
exile
history. Where there were economic opportunities. So the family had to migrate. They had to find economic opportunities, and they did that very bravely, but just picking up and coming right around the world to Australia, where they can work in factories and particularly Brunswick, have those industrialised factories, which is so much part of our history as well. So the textiles industry is really huge here.
Where this building is, we currently living.
And my mother worked in those factories. They were closed on her, one after the other. But she worked in the textile industry, and then she worked in at the chef factory, which produced white goods and so forth. And, we really struggled as a family. So I saw the challenges that my parents faced to put food on the table. And I saw the exploitation that occurred through those industrial sort of work sites, and the importance of unionism and that collective organising. My parents were members of the Australian Workers Union at the chef factory when it closed, and they were part of the campaign there to save their jobs and get a good deal. And I guess that sort of, it's part of that family history. That labour aspect is part of that family history. So it's part of identity as well. Like, there was never really an option.
Well, you would have been like a teenager when this happened.
Yeah, of course. Look, I remember as a teenager going and helping out in election campaigns, and I wanted to do that. I felt so passionate. I wanted to hand out how to vote cards on election day.
For Labor.
For Labor.
Yes, okay.
Of course, for Labor. And because, I knew that a progressive Labor government could deliver that change that could help my parents and could help our sort of, family. And I believed in that so passionately as a teenager. And I knew that election is so important. Every election is so important. And that hasn't changed. I still believe that. And that's why I'm a member of the Labor Party.
I wonder actually, so there's this focus on workers and unions. I guess, the socialists would also say, hey, that's our basis. Like, we're the party that supports unions and workers.
I'm not sure if they've realised this, but the Labor Party was created by the unions, and almost all of the unions.
And they helped destroy it too, right? When they brought Hawke in with Keating and the Accord to suppress wages for a generation. So
anyway,
not sure about that, but
so your critique is the socialists are the fake union party.
I don't think they're the union party. For 100+ years, the Labor Party is the party of the union movement. And I say movement because it really is. It's only one branch, that political branch. But the other aspects, the unions collectively through Chads Hall and the ACTU is the other wing, I guess. It works together and it works to achieve change for working Australians. Now that's worked for over 100 years and will continue to work. And now the King Socialists may think that they represent the union movement. And there may be a union or two that says, yes, our values align, but that has not historically been the case. Historically, the political party that delivers change and that the unions work through has been the Labor Party.
But what about when the Hawke government used the airlines to bust the unions?
Look,
the Air Force, yeah.
I mean, there are those cases in history, and I guess, you could say this example and this example. Now, I'm not that was a long time ago, so I'm not specifically very familiar with it, but there are numerous examples where Labor governments and the unions have had a falling out, or Labor governments and the unions have had a disagreement. But by and large, it is the movement, it is the political wing of the union movement, the Labor Party. So I think that is quite clear historically and currently.
Well, I'll give you like at least 2 or 3 opportunities now. I haven't heard what actually Labor has done for the union as a government party for the actual workers in the union, because the membership has decreased exponentially. There hasn't been people being in the union. There hasn't been any call by the Labor Party at any stage to mobilise the unions to achieve anything. Like the people actually went on the street themselves, with the IRR, industrial relation rules.
Yeah.
You know, so it wasn't like Labor saying, let's get out there, we're picketing for...
This was back in the day.
Yeah, but I haven't seen anything from Labor to say, workers unite, let's end this, let's do this. So apart from my examples where Labor has actually done adverse things for a union movement, I'm not hearing anything other than...
No, they do. I mean, in the sense that you might see a protest that's organised by the union movement, but it's Labor members and Labor people that are behind it and supporting it. So sometimes you don't see the government come out, but you do in many examples as well.
Such as?
But it is one and the same in the sense that the people who are organising these actions, these industrial actions, are the unions and are people that are being supported by the Labor Party and who are very much a part of the Labor Party. And it also means that they're able to then have a voice and a direct line into government through various government MPs. But there is a separation, I guess, between the government and the union movement. But when it comes to people on the ground, you would find that Labor members are at the forefront of the union movement, are at the forefront of leading campaigns, of protesting on the streets. We had the firefighters on the streets just this week, run and led by the Australian Workers Union. A lot of people in attendance who were supporting that were members of the Labor Party.
But in all of that, takeaway line is, there is no direct nexus between the Labor government and the Labor movement, Labor union movement and the unions. So there's a circle of the Labor government and there's another circle and a little Venn diagram with unions to the Labor movement. That's the takeaway line.
Look, we might need to disagree with it.
No, that were your words. I was just distilling your words. Yeah. And I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that. There are people who are part of the Labor movement that aren't necessarily unions, that are influencing aspects of the union movement. But as far as what Labor government
it has to keep it separate.
No, not has to, are separate because they are corrupt and it's a different organisation that is... your word. Now, the corruption is mine. But there is a reason why they're separate. Because if they were the same, it would be a Venn diagram. Government, the union, Labor union movement, and the unions. But that's why it's separate.
We might be over-analysing it.
No, your words, and I agree with you.
It should probably be mentioned. Viewers might already be aware. So there's all these rules about crushing minor parties. And so some of the current ones, I'm not sure if it's passed yet as law. It's about campaign funding. Mm-hmm. And so, like, for instance, I think it's like Liberal Party events where like you pay for some speaking event, listen to a Liberal person, that doesn't count as like political donation.
You can spend it anywhere you want once the Liberal Party gets it, right? And then Labor do the same.
Well, and then so as well, like union fees that then get passed on to the Labor Party, they don't count as campaign donations. No. Versus for minor parties, we accept campaign donations, they count as campaign donations.
Which party brought that in?
Well, Liberal and Labor,
Look, there has been calls for sort of reform of donation laws for many, many years, right?
Were those people saying that we should do this current scheme of the donations that don't count as donations?
Look, I mean, this was debated and people went through what's going to work. So there's a cap of about $4,000 per donation per individual.
Yeah, we get the tail of what's wagging the dog,
but
right?
Wise affiliations, I guess that is why you're asking. Well, that's the exclusion that they made. They said if you can affiliate to a particular political party, and I guess affiliations have been part of the Labor Party, the union affiliation has been
we know why they did
a lot of years.
We know why they did it because the people that voted it for it, got it through, have the affiliations, and they know that independents don't, and therefore they marginalise the minorities that want to try and get in. We know the answer. Everyone knows it, and no spin doctor can distill it any
I
other
don't
way.
think you got to sell us on this.
No, but all of which to bring it into full circle, and bring it back to the Labor Party being the party of unions. They choose to affiliate to the Labor Party and pay an affiliation fee, and they've done so
Like KPMG does.
for numerous amounts of years. I don't know how it works in the Conservative Party. I don't know, but the Labor Party and the unions are affiliated, and I think that's the conclusion there.
I'm changing topics slightly. Okay, so
Quiz.
Oh yeah, actually,
No.
actually,
Go on.
we'll do the quiz. That's a good time.
All right.
Yeah. Lambros, so this is a quote. Listeners try to guess it as well. So yeah, quote. Who said the quote? Do we agree with it?
Which part falls?
The,
Do I agree?
oh,
Or
yeah,
who
sure.
said it?
Whichever comes to mind.
No,
you
let's
first.
listen to it.
So, okay, so the listeners, the quote is, for making it possible for people to get where they're going without resorting to public transportation or carpooling, I give you the key to the city.
Homer Simpson, the monorail.
Oh, you're close, you're close. Lambros, you know.
No, I haven't heard.
Okay, so this was Mayor Quimby giving the key to the city to Homer Simpson. This was when he was Mr.
That
Platt.
was-
Mr. Flower.
Yeah, so, you know, plowing away the snow, you know, restoring the roads.
Your delivery sort of gave me a little.
Yeah.
That's good.
But, but did you ever give out the key to the city, by the way?
No,
They should have keys of the city, and sort of almost like Daryl Summers, King of Moomba. They should just have like the mayor just going down Sydney Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's missing. That's missing that
I
fanfare.
wanted to honour some of our Olympians when they returned back from the Olympics by doing something, and
Oh, okay.
and I asked you.
We had some from Brunswick.
We did. From Merri-bek, we did. We had some medal winners as well.
We don't care anyone else.
Oh, are we talking the 2024
Olympians?
games?
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, we had no key. We had no key to hand out, but we did honour them during our community awards. But I think that quote is really about the power of a local government and the change that it could really make. So,
You don't watch Simpsons, do you?
The corruption. I mean, hang on.
I stand for.
Well, Lambros, did you ever watch The Simpsons?
look, I did watch The Simpsons, yes. And I've seen that episode. I know Matt from
Is he one of your favourite mayors?
No, he's not a mayor, but I would have voted myself on, but no.
What about Monsieur le Maire in Les Miserables?
You always want to sneak that play in. It's the one show you did. Like, when did you perform there? You performed at something.
Oh, did I perform it?
Oh, yeah. No.
Oh, I love watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about it a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's good. There was a previous boyfriend. He failed the test because he didn't.
Well,
wasn't
you
a fan
gay.
of this. No, but it's ridiculous. He said, what was it? Something came up about the movie. I said, have you seen the Les Miserables version with Hugh Jackman and Russell Crowe? Oh, I haven't seen that one, but I have seen the one with Anne Hathaway. Oh my goodness.
That's it.
Yeah. I knew that.
You were like, no, good at kicking around.
Is that with Russell Crowe? Is that?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Is Russell Crowe in that movie?
Yeah. He's Inspector Javert.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Just me and you, Peter, we're done. Okay.
We're not going out with each other.
But yeah, anyway, have you seen it, by the way?
No, I think I'm out as well. I have not seen it.
Okay. But no, I guess actually, speaking of, we're not going to date, but you're married, aren't you?
No, I'm not right. No, I'm not right.
Ladies, if you're on the you could have got
a big judgment. How do you know each of the ladies?
that's the vibe I was getting.
Because you didn't like Les Miserables.
No, I mean, they have this sweater with this.
Like that's all the
You AI the entrance before they come.
Yeah, I should do a bit of stalking online. Suss them out a bit.
Okay.
But I do try to keep this more of a natural conversation. We haven't done too much of the snooping in it beforehand. The background research, I should call it. Yeah,
we've done the fact checking. We're still looking for the fact check.
Yeah, if only once we get a bit more of a bigger budget. Yeah, but so bring it back to our guest here. I was going to ask. So Labor defines itself so heavily about jobs.
We're sandwiched the jobs and growth.
Yeah, that's good.
You're missing the growth bit.
Well, but then is it like a horse with blinders? Are jobs, is that always the best thing to optimize for? I mean, we see, for instance, AI now could replace many people's jobs, but no, we have to have jobs.
Yeah. Look, can I say, I don't see AI as replacing people's work, right? There will always be a need for people to look over AI. I mean, as a tool, AI is going to be the future. We all know that.
For the viewers, I don't want to work. So like these guys want, if you want everyone to work, you are for labour. So
look, look on AI, right? More specifically, I think it's a really interesting tool, and it's going to be something that we all need to embrace. I know in the local government sector, there are those people who want to sort of, hoping it all goes away and put their head in the sand. And then there are others who are more interested in how it can be applied. And I think that's the key thing here. How can we apply this really powerful tool, this analytical tool really, to go through data and to create efficiencies? But there will always need to be a human that looks over it and makes sure it's correct, because we've noticed that the AI output isn't perfect. AI sort of hallucinates sometimes, it comes up with its own little things that it makes up sometimes entirely. So when you're dealing with a level of government where the information is so sensitive that has to be correct, the information that's given out has to be accurate, then you will always need a human eye to go over it. So I see AI technology as a really exciting part of the future, but I don't see it replacing jobs. I see it as making your job more efficient and giving you more time to do more.
Isn't the argument, and I'm the last person to advocate for technology though, but isn't like the way they're actually selling AI is actually, the flip side of that is that, it's human error that it will actually correct.
Yeah, that's right as well. I mean, it's got to work hand in hand, right? So the AI and humans working together will produce a far better outcome than just humans alone and just the AI alone. And it's the efficiencies as well. So like, if I give an example, say from local council, we get a huge amount of phone calls and emails, but let's say phone calls in the call centre, right? Now, the vast majority, thousands of them would be just very simple reporting of a pothole or a tree that needs to be pruned or some dumped rubbish. Now, you can apply an AI to that and it could pick up those keywords. What needs to be picked up, what needs to be fixed, its location, and it can register that in the system and generate a number and give it to the responsible staff member. Now, we currently would have a person doing that, right? So they'll take all of those phone calls. You can have an AI taking those phone calls. And that would leave the people more time to deal with more important matters or the more difficult matters. Of course, there would have to be some mechanism where the AI goes, I need to direct this to a human. It's not as simple and straightforward, but they've got to work hand in hand if the system is going to work. But look, I think, the AI is going to revolutionise councils and government, but they've got to get it right, because at the moment the technology is still so new and there's teething issues with it. There's security issues that we need to address. Like, we don't want our data going to some company abroad and you don't know who has access to it. So government's got to grapple with how does it create AI technologies and systems where the data is stored here in Australia, so you can have control of that data but give confidence.
But to that point, do you know what, say, being the government and I guess Labor being in control, what's their stance on AI and do they have a view? What's their policy?
Well, I'm just a member, right? So I should clarify. I don't really speak for the Labor Party. I'm not a representative.
From someone who's involved in the Labor movement, because I'm saying from an ignorant perspective.
Yeah. Look, I think every level of government is looking at AIs, or should be. And if they're not doing their job properly, because they should be looking at how to apply and how to mitigate against some of those safety concerns. And that means investing heavily in AI technologies here in Australia and hopefully here in Victoria. So we can support the technology, support its growth, create jobs here, but also making sure that we're not reliant on some foreign company for this really critical tool. So I think that's the future, and I think everyone is looking at it. And I think you'll get some news probably early next year about the way forward, both from state government and the federal government.
That's very rapid timeline next year sometime. We were just talking actually on our previous episode. We were chatting with someone from the CSO, an AI researcher, and I guess one of the things that annoys me is how slow Australia's response has been. How we've been like left behind. It's
I would say that there's a lot of work occurring currently behind the scenes, and I'll be a bit more specific maybe early next year, around February or March, you might get a discussion paper or policy position.
Like, for instance, how Labor implemented the protection of children logging on to
the social media
ban, which then captures what I as an adult will be looking at.
Yeah, and look, we are leading the world with those. We're addressing.
I'm not saying that it's a good thing.
Is that somebody?
because what they want to now is that since I identify I'm not a child, they now can check and track everything I do look at.
So look, some of those reforms, I mean, the government, the federal government, of course, implemented those reforms, but there was quite concern from parents about children spending too much time.
I think there was. There were people complaining.
The Simpsons episode, won't someone think of the children?
Yeah.
It is one of those moments.
Exactly, yeah.
Every now and then you throw it in, won't someone think of the children? And then it becomes the, ad nauseous thing on the news, etc., etc. And then all of a sudden, it's the next iteration. It's like, well, at least they're not cutting off our legs.
Yeah.
Look, sometimes you do need to regulate things, and so that's something that's occurring.
They could regulate the childcare industry. They could regulate domestic violence and everything else that needs to be done. But the things that are important, it's
Well, let's see how that sort of pans out. I know that the big tech giants have now adopted it, and they're following the law, so it's something to follow.
I wonder who dictated it.
They don't really have choice, do they?
They don't. It is the law. You want to operate in Australia, you've got to follow Australian law.
I suspect it was they that told the government what to put in, but let's...
No, I don't know.
Perhaps, yeah.
I think so.
But yeah,
who would it would reckon?
So, Lambros, you mentioned, for instance, investing in AI, which I like to hear that. Although one of the things I noticed, like the government's idea of like investing in technologies, it plays towards let's give a grant to an existing company. It seems as though like startups are never taken seriously in these government processes. And I was researching before, so the ACTU. The Australian Council of Trade Unions. So they're, Labor's biggest fanboy. They put Lambros to shame. They were saying, for instance, there needs to be like three-way conversations about the future of AI. I think the three people are workers, tech companies, and governments, I guess. But, this presupposes like the tech company is going to be there in the room because the tech company already exists. The tech company is willing to turn up and chat with workers. Many of these companies, there are other ways of funding besides grants. If you lay the groundwork, make it easy for people to start tech companies in Brunswick.
That's spot on. You also got to invest in the innovation, right? That goes along with this technology.
So what does it mean for you?
Well, I mean, that means partnerships with universities, getting people to do research on the technology, developing sort of I'm not a tech person per se, but developing, for instance. Developing the technology in Australia. So the language model that AI uses, for example, ChatGPT uses, it's really the first iteration of it. Like, I mean, what's the next phase and the third and fourth phase going to look like? And why can't we be leading the charge on that here in Victoria? So I'm really interested in that, and I think that's where government needs to move, needs to take initiative and support startups for sure. It's not just grants, but it's actually supporting the environment that's going to allow them to grow and connecting them with research institutions and making sure that they're really saying to the big tech giants that we want to support a local industry here, a local AI industry. And I think that's very possible. And it's the approach government should be taking, and all levels of government for that matter, right? So the federal government through the National Reconstruction Fund can certainly look at things around resilience and industries and making sure that AI is something that's developed here locally. The state government can support its implementation, and local councils can utilise the technology, and government departments can, and other businesses can.
Co-working spaces as well, maybe.
Spaces.
Like, they're at a local level, they could help startups be more easy to get off the ground.
So I think there's a role for everyone. So I think that approach is correct. And the unions need to be part of that conversation, and they need to make it work.
For a bit about the unions conversation, who's the president of the SCT?
Oh, Sally McManus. Yeah.
Like when I listen to her, I actually like what she has to say and her policies and so forth. And no, I do. No, I do.
Teacher.
No, I don't give a shit what it is. I actually like what she has to say on a lot of things. My question though is, what she says, she's probably got stronger nexus with, say, Marxist guest, rather than the Labor Party. In policies.
That's not true. Lambros just clarified.
I'm saying Sally would clarify that directly if she were here. Right?
And I think she would. And I'd put Elbow there and her there, and I'd say, right, on taxing, say, from capital gains, for instance, or, and tell me what you think and what you've put out on the media as well. And it'll be not the same. They won't be the same.
Hang on, dude. I don't read everything that ACTU puts out, but reading their AI policy, it seemed very much they love what Labor is doing.
No. I know you can make generic statements. I'll just give you a specific example.
This was a specific example as well, the AI stuff. Like, I've got
God,
some right here. Okay,
On something that's immaterial, you want to talk about AI. I'm talking about what affects people.
So, housing, did you say?
Capital gains.
Yeah, capital. Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know. Do you think that Labor's heading in the right direction at the moment? By the way, in terms of like housing policies, capital gains tax.
It is a tax matter.
I do think there are tax matters that could be looked at in more detail. I mean, we know that the policy that Bill Shorten took to his election around reforming the tax system around capital gains and all sorts of
Grandfathering it,
did not go well with the electorate. But I think there are aspects there that need to be readdressed in the future. But I mean, that's not my job to do. I mean, the Labor politicians will look at all of that and see whether that's a path they want to go down to. I mean, I have to reiterate again, I'm just a member and a former mayor and local councillor, but I'm not engaged at that.
Does it sound like you can't speak and have an opinion because you're a member?
No, it doesn't. I'm just saying
to clarify that.
I just want to clarify that I'm probably not in the know.
There's no gulag.
No, it's just probably I'm not in the know about everything that they're planning. But more on housing, it is really the biggest sort of challenge of our generation at the moment, housing affordability. And it's come from the fact that governments, from all persuasions, for a long period of time, have not invested the money, but they should have in housing. But we are seeing that change now. And both federally and in Victoria, we're seeing significant amounts of money going to social and affordable housing and community housing, but also planning regulations changing. So we want to remove some of the obstacles, some of the red tape. And you see that in Brunswick, there's a huge discussion occurring right now about our activity centres and heights within those centres and how this suburb is going to change in the future. And can it accommodate more growth? And I think it can accommodate more growth. But these are conversations that we need to have together as a community, right? But what you're seeing is a real change of attitude. When I first got elected to council, and I must admit as well, I was one of these people that was looking at how do we manage it, and we don't want too many heights. And we would reject applications, and which today we acknowledge should have been approved, right? So over time, over the last decade or 2 decades, I think community sentiment has changed, and I think councillors in particular are starting to acknowledge that their job is not how do I block development, but how do I enable it, right? And I think that's occurred, and I've certainly seen that from my first days at Merri-bek Council to my last few days at Merri-bek Council, where that emphasis changed. So on the local council level, you are seeing more of an approach on how can I accommodate growth because we're in a housing crisis. On a state level, you are seeing more financial investment. So just down the road here, we have a number of projects, a big deal of projects, which are funded by the state government, social and affordable housing. But you're also seeing some of the real blockers in the planning scheme start to be addressed. So the planning scheme starting to enable more development and starting to look at things that have been used in the past to stifle development or delay development. So the government is interested in getting rid of some of this red tape to ensure that projects don't fall over and can actually be built quickly, because when a developer purchases a site, they get a loan and they have a holding cost, right?
Yeah.
So the longer council and government take to approve things, the more that cost is building, and then they pass that on.
Yeah, sure.
So,
But effectively what you're saying is it's a supply issue again. So, and as you're describing all that, there's this image going through my head that, since you're talking about local government, that, they built this swimming pool filled with quicksand, and they said to the councillors, step in. And you guys are trying to navigate, to not sink in there. So you're doing it nice and slowly, because always this quicksand that represents the red tape, as you described all of it. And yet there's someone at the other end who can just pull the valve to suck all that quicksand out, which is called the tax system, right? And yet, because everyone accepts that, well, politically it's not right, because yes, a large portion of the electorate benefits from it, because there is no housing crisis for the vast majority of people that benefit from the housing industry as it is now, right? Financially, because they get it as welfare, right? It is government welfare for those who have it. So until someone is willing to pull that valve to suck that quicksand out, everyone who's involved in politics, from local to federal, and everyone that sponsors and benefits from it, will keep talking about the supply issue until abrasively I get 2 pens and fucking stab my eyes out. So with all due respect, you said supply, and it's not the supply. So until they actually grow some balls and we get on the street and say enough, I'm not swallowing that fucking Kool-Aid ever again.
Again, we might need to disagree. It is supply effectively, but it is the tax system as well. And, look, I'm not going to, I mentioned before, I'm not a Labor politician. I'm not going to speak on behalf of the Labor Party or any level of government. But I personally do believe that the negative gearing stuff needs to be looked at. And I think that would help, because there are too many people that are taking advantage of that loophole in the tax system. I think that's a given.
It's not a loophole. It is welfare for those who have.
Yeah.
It is like robbery. It is.
That's my personal view, that government ought to have another look at that, and they ought to do that quickly, right? And that will have a huge impact on housing affordability and housing prices.
Then you can start manipulating the small pebbles in the jar, because until you get rid of those boulders in there, you can't even get to these pebbles.
I mean, it is difficult, and I mean, a lot of people listening will probably have experienced this, where they're trying to get into the market and they go to an auction and they get outbid by someone who's
got equity in 3 other houses that are subsidised by the taxpayer, and can just say, fine, I'm going up to that. That's it. And this thing that the Labor government has now brought in to say, yeah, we'll guarantee your loan. It's out. They're out of the business already. They've just increased the price already.
Yeah, so look, there's a number of different mechanisms, right, that they need to look at. The tax system is one, and the negative gearing
is one. So they're using the tax system to benefit the tax system who already have benefit from the tax system. It is the most nonsensical.
So supply can't be sort of, supply is part of.
It is the small pebbles in the jar of big boulders.
Let's get back to the local level. So Lambros, you mentioned some of the changes, to quote unquote cut red tape.
Yeah.
So one of the changes is so along here in Brunswick, many of the buildings, like our building is we're on level 7 at the moment. Now along Sydney Road, the main road here, it's going to be allowed up to level 12, level 16. The state government is saying that the local council will no longer be able to get a say in all this planning. Who controls the local neighbourhood? Not the local people anymore.
It's always been a dual responsibility by councils and government, because you're right.
But back to his point, is that the local people that have us, where do we have our seats?
Yeah, it is true that the locals have their say through their representatives, through councillors.
Well, they're the main.
No. I mean, your local councillors who sit as a decision maker in the planning in the planning committee of council, right, that approves applications. So you do get a say there, but inevitably that committee that approves permits is a semi-judicial committee. It needs to have a look at the planning scheme and whether the application meets the planning scheme. So locals get a say also in the way the city develops by the laws, the planning laws themselves, and that's where we should be putting all of our efforts. So the consultation, I believe, is open around this activity centre policy,
and the fact that it changed. The fact that it changed, like the state government is taking all these powers away, do you see that as a vote of no confidence to councils? Do you see it as contempt for locals?
No, I think that there is always going to be a role for locals to have a say. Now, quite often it needs to be balanced with the broader sort of community benefit of we need more housing in the state of Victoria. So when you look at this activity centre, and we're talking about areas right here where we are around Sydney Road.
To clarify for people, activity centres in the government context, it's like, a part of Brunswick that's meant to be very busy.
Yeah, so Sydney Road, our main shopping corridor, and also some of our industrial precincts just adjacent to it, right? So we're not talking about the suburban streets that have low density, single and double story dwellings. We're talking about areas that can and should sustain growth because they're close to public transport corridors and they're close to all of these amenities that people need, right? So it is the perfect area. And quite often there are not many other sort of neighbours. That's changing with each apartment building that goes up. But you have to ask yourself the question, if we can accommodate more people here, why shouldn't we? Because that will take pressure off our suburban areas as well. So the objective is to have more growth. Now, in regards to heights in particular, there are ratios that are used to measure overshadowing, sunlight, and they're mitigated by enforcing things like setbacks. So when you hear 15 or 16 stories, that won't be everywhere. That will only be on really large parcels of land that can sustain that height, because you still need to implement all of those setbacks and make sure there's natural light and all of those amenity issues. So that doesn't go. The strategy here is one that community can have a say right now during the consultation, that it's got to acknowledge that this is the perfect place to build more dwellings.
I should mention on the YIMBY side, actually, it might sound as though I just wanted to block all development, that sort of thing. But a YIMBY argument we could say is like, if the state government and the federal government have made this mandate, there are going to be 50,000 extra people in Melbourne. Then Brunswick, we can look at it and how much development should we approve? Well, there are going to be 50,000 people in Melbourne. Do we want to sort of absorb them into Brunswick so that they become Brunswick sort of people, or do we want another 50,000 sort of Frankston people?
I'm not sure whether I sort of agree with that. But look,
or they want to dilute Brunswick.
Well, that's an unfortunate but inherent trade-off. I think that you get called racist for saying that the people who move into the new area are obviously not going to be exactly the same.
What if they came from St. Pauli in Hamburg?
Is there? I don't know the relevance of the same.
It's kind of Bohemian comment.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Look, we are.
Okay, sorry.
Look, I think there is such a concept as Old Brunswick and New Brunswick sometimes, and
no, we don't talk to East Brunswick at all.
but look, the suburb has changed a lot, right? So, I started by talking about my family, right, and my parents, and I guess. Yeah, they came here because it was an industrial suburb where the jobs were, and it was a working class suburb, and that's its history. And some of them worked in those industries, others worked in retail and in takeaway shops, and they brought and created all these great shops and coffee shops and restaurants and fish and chip shops and all of that kind of diversity that they brought really made the suburb special. And I think that's what really appeals. So as it gentrifies, we've got to make sure we don't lose that. That's what brings people to Brunswick. That's what makes Brunswick special. And unfortunately, we may lose that.
I think Fitzroy actually, I think, is also doing a great job of it's very quickly gentrifying, and yet it still has
That's the Fitzroy.
Oh, I do prefer Brunswick, but the music scene in Fitzroy is still very much alive. It's still politically active. Versus I grew up in Sydney.
They got rid of the Greens.
In Fitzroy. Oh, did they? Oh, yeah, because Melbourne, the federal electorate, Melbourne's not. That was a surprise.
But also the council, right? The Greens Yarra Council.
Yeah, they got rid of them. Yeah,
wasn't doing a very good job, and that's not me speaking. That's the electorate, and they were all replaced, and I think that had an impact right across the board. But look, you're spot on about investing in culture, right? So that is really important. I guess one of the greatest sort of things I love to talk about is the Lambros Place, which is just around the corner from here, which is community and art space. A project which
I know the one you're talking
I was
about,
involved in the purchase of its land in my first year on
Is that
council.
where the old...
next to the pool.
Yeah, next to the pool.
The
old school.
It's like 3 stories now. There's like an old church building.
Oh, yes.
And
What is that building inside there?
it is a brand new art centre, and it's a community space
wow.
as well as arts.
Yeah.
So you can lease out a room. You can do your podcasts there. You could
do they have
create.
soundproofing?
They do. They have a whole range
Interesting.
of
Yeah, maybe we
facilities.
should.
And
fact checker.
and it is about bringing community together. It's about bringing industry that is in that creative space, and they will be charged, sort of commercial rates and therefore subsidise community rates for artists, so we can have arts incubation and other sort of community activities in the space. So, we heard loud and clear that this is a problem, right? And we need to protect culture. And this was one of our biggest objectives. And over many, many years, because council does move very slowly, that's my biggest criticism of council, but we were able to implement that, and it opened about a year ago. It's a great success.
I like the design because it doesn't look like it. It looks like a building, but housing, but it's not.
And incorporates a really historical house. Sherwood House right in the middle of it. Something that was really obscured.
It was
covered.
It was covered. Yeah. And now, you could go there and you see this new historical house, but then you see this new building. And it's bringing arts as well to some groups that wouldn't be able to access arts before. So it's got a real community feel to it. So there's a big Indigenous First Nations sort of aspect to the project. So there is the Black Duck Gallery, which is an Indigenous art gallery, but also we want to make sure that we're supporting Indigenous arts into the future and multicultural arts, and making sure that there is a diversity of age groups and community, all bringing them together, right? So it's a great project. It's one of many that need to occur across the inner north of Melbourne to keep that culture in these places. So it's just one example, right?
Yeah, I wonder, actually, I was at the opening recently, Wilson Avenue, next to Jewel Station. You would have played a part in that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think I played a part in most things in Brunswick, being involved for so long.
But that turned out really well. It's making it much more walkable between Sydney Road and the train station.
I still remember some business owners there, right? Some those warehouse owners telling me in 2014 that this was not going to work, and that they needed to get their trucks in and out of their warehouse. And I was really saying to them, look, the future is not warehousing here. The future is an urban sort of project with housing and pedestrian spaces.
Yeah.
And, that was the second most unsafe place in the city. Petty crime, theft mostly.
Oh, okay.
So that area, because it linked Sydney Road and the train station, was, if you looked at police statistics at the time, the second worst area in the city. So it was also an area that caused a lot of accidents, traffic accidents, as cars tried to navigate in and out.
Oh, because it would have been so crowded. Yeah, I see.
So we had two problems here that we had to address. And we also knew that the future would be more density and more pedestrianisation. And the project, the vision, came across around 2012, 13 and 14, and we did some consultation. There was resistance, there was, but we held to that vision, and I think the end result has proven us correct. Yeah. So you go there now, not only does it accommodate so many more people, but it's a really nice space, mostly pedestrianised, that it's got coffee shops, it's a real place.
They've got the climbing wall
and the bouldering wall's a part of it, but it's a small part of it.
I really like that.
Wow, down.
And we've just completed the final stages because we had, in order to do the improvements to the public ground, like the footpaths and all of that kind of stuff, you really can't do that if development's still occurring. Because it's going to destroy it.
There's a massive bar walk down there as well.
There is, and more will come as the area picks up. So we did the vision, we did the first project, closed the road, and now we've sort of just completed, or council actually. They stopped saying we. Council has just completed.
Because I've walked past there, like I've seen how these little bars that have overlooked, like they do alcohol and cafes, and you're thinking that, and yes, there's some higher rise kind of apartments there, but you can see how that community there will utilize that space and their community, and it'll have a different vibe there, even though they're smack bang in the middle of Sydney Road.
Yeah.
But they also will feel separate from it.
Yeah.
It does have a nice
It's just
distinction.
behind Sydney
definitely.
Road. People love to be able to explore and discover.
Yeah.
And I think that that is something that we should consider when we're creating these public
I think
public
that something
spaces.
like that gets duplicated, or either purposely duplicated. I think people, you can make it your own. Sort of obviously don't cookie cut it, but that concept would work.
Yeah. And there's a great opportunity right now because we're going to get elevated rail here.
Yeah.
So the upfield line, which just runs parallel to here, parallel to Sydney Road, and has all these little side streets that run between the two, which have been traditionally warehouses and industrial.
For people outside Brunswick, the elevated rail, it'll replace all the level crossings. So now, drivers won't have to wait as long, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a great project. It's been really successful. And I'm just waiting. I've been calling for elevated rail in Brunswick for a decade plus. So I'm just waiting for it to happen. We think 2030 it'll be completed here on the upfield line. And it's just going to change the whole suburb actually and provide those opportunities. So how can we make sure now when these areas turn over and these factories start being developed into homes, how can we make sure that we have a good mix of open space, of pedestrianised places, and that retail activity. So bring people off Sydney Road to come in and explore and have a bite to eat and a coffee and buy something off Sydney Road. So I think that's the future, and it's really exciting about what can occur in this this corridor between Sydney Road and the railway line with elevated rail.
Yes.
Have you walked the elevated rail section of Coburg?
It's not really. It's very long.
It's quite long.
Oh, I mean, I've been along it on my bicycle.
I haven't noticed options to kind of dine and drink. Yes, really.
Not there.
Oh no, right next to what is it? What's that next station along? Like right next to there's a small cocktail bar that seems tempting.
Yeah.
Nina's, yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's part of the Nightingale thing. It's not part of the high.
I guess, I get what you mean.
I think that's sort of something, one of the learnings from COVID, I think from an amenity perspective, like I walk up and down and I cycle up and down sort of that corridor, and I prefer it to walking on Sydney Road, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And
I prefer Sydney Road. To be honest, I find that, since we're talking about that, I find that very sparse and like almost cold, where if what we're discussing about what has been occurred down there, that's what I'd like to see. And I can't see now the correlation between, raising, the rail on that. So, because I haven't seen that in Coburg.
No, let's bridge the gap though in Brunswick, right? Like let's make that the learnings of Coburg. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can see in Coburg as far as the open space and things that are occurring there. I think in Brunswick, and it will happen more naturally in Brunswick because small dams. If we can actually talk about pedestrianising these side streets and creating industries, coffee shops and restaurants and shops that have a frontage onto that elevated rail and that linear park that they created underneath, I think that's when you get the best outcome.
100%.
And that's the vision. I think that there's opportunity.
Yeah, because Coburg didn't do that. Coburg's, for me, you go through it, it feels like,
it's sort of like a ghost town. You're right. Going on Sydney Road, there's that serendipity. Like, this bar looks interesting.
Yeah. And the new one just opened up now as well. So I'd like to see, like I described that place there. I really enjoy it. And if you're going to raise it, you need to have those. So then the community can congregate.
The difference why it didn't happen in Coburg is because the adjoining areas are residential.
Yes.
Whereas the adjoining areas here now are transitional areas that are going from industrial warehouses to housing. So council can, if it has the foresight, implement that vision, and I think that that's really exciting for the suburb. That opportunity.
Actually, going back to the Wilson Avenue and like the rock climbing wall there, I really like as well the uniqueness of how often do you see a park with a rock climbing wall? The kids love it, and there's you see like the Greens here, they love building more parks, but I'm worried about like, is every park going to be the same? Just patch of grass, the dogs to pee. I think all the unique what do you call it? Like the public.
You're going to talk about the big green park that you want from New York here again. Like every third episode, he laws, Central Park.
We might agree with him because
He's like, no, but he wants to consolidate every park into one big park in Melbourne.
I was thinking,
and I said, we do have botanical gardens. He goes, oh yeah, no, but something different.
Can I just say, I wouldn't give the Greens on Council any credit for any of the new parks. Having worked on most of them and know how they came about, I wouldn't give the Greens any credit at all. But we could talk about each. I can tell you why.
Well, it's something I did want to raise.
So I wanted to say that there is a view that we need to just fill the gaps. Where are there no parks?
Yeah.
And there isn't that vision to say we also need to expand existing parks. So I think that you need to do that. We're not going to have a big central park like New York, unfortunately, right? But you can't just have a little pocket park in every area. You also need to develop large open spaces that could be, the lungs of the city, so to speak.
Well, a park, it's a destination.
Exactly.
It's not just where's my dog going to pee. It's like, what's a park I actually want to go to?
No, totally.
Now, I'll tell you why I don't give the Greens a lot of credit, right? Because for many years, we create parks from a pool of money that developers contribute, right? So when something is built in the area and there's more housing in the area, it gets subdivided and a percentage goes to a fund, which is there for parks. But it's there for new parks and existing parks and upgrades to parks. So for many years, the council would just spend it on upgrades. So, there needs to be a seat in the park, or there needs to be some new lighting. It would be the go-to place. Would be go to that reserve. And what you have at every budget, as they start really discussing the sort of $10,000 up and $10,000 down, is this shifting of money and projects that were in the base budget, but now they're shifted to the reserve. So we never saved the money to be able to make new purchases. And I was very keen to see this changed and create a policy which we call park close to home, and save that money. So develop a bit of a ratio of a 90-10 split where we save 90%. And when that was implemented, with some opposition from some councillors, but it was implemented and the money started being spent on new parks. And now it's rolled out to the creation of, I think 7 or 8 new parks that we've seen in the last decade, where we saw none the decade
I guess, there could be sort of misappropriation. The new building gets built in Coburg, the funds get collected, and then that's spent on upgrades in Brunswick.
And that was happening. The other way around, though, what was occurring was the bulk of the money comes from Brunswick because that's where the development is. But the bulk of the money was being spent elsewhere on upgrades right across the city. So density needs to be important in that consideration because if you're building so many apartments right here in this activity centre, but you're spending the money in parks in the north or new seating in an existing park in the north, for example, you're not really doing, you're not spending that money for the purpose of really required to spend. Right? So it's changing that mentality, and that change has led to the creation of these new parks. And my final decision on the council, which was then confidential but had now been released, was the purchase of another park on Sydney Road.
Which is there, isn't it?
So looking forward to councils doing the consultation soon about that one as well.
So that's interesting. I spoke to a Greens councillor about this.
They took credit for it.
You were not mentioned as being involved in this. I'll say that.
Of course not. But you can remind them that the decision was made prior to their term on council. But of course, some people like to take the credit.
So they is it in consultation about what's actually do with that lot
that's
now?
Right.
Okay.
That's right. It's actually quite interesting, right? Because things take time on the council. So you often see the mayor cutting the ribbon. That mayor probably had nothing to do with it. It's probably their predecessor. It just took so much time and we had to turn over and there was a new mayor. So quite often the person opening or taking credit is not the person that it's not where the decision was made or the idea generated.
It's like poor Albanese is being blamed for AUKUS, but it's really Stonewall that's responsible.
Hang on, he's doubling down on it.
No, he doesn't pick up sarcasm. He has Greek DNA in there.
But
you would AUKUS with its nuclear sort of.
I mean, there we need to spend on defence. I don't quite,
He's cooling down on the nuclear.
Yeah, yeah. The socialists, they love talking about like, oh, all this money gets wasted on military stuff. You know,
No,
I
it's
don't
a
want,
killer policy.
I don't want to get, I don't want to get invaded.
Really, by the which ethnic group in
Well,
particular?
anyway.
Which one?
Been by anyone, maybe the USA.
The USA's going to invade. Oh yeah, we don't give them to the military
Well, like
machinery.
We need to be able to have a
Qualify
force.
why they're there for our friends.
We need to have a force that's big enough that I think Australia, this is no longer Brunswick, Australia could be the richest country in the world.
Of course, if it wasn't for our corrupt government.
Yeah, we have like our natural resources.
Yes.
We could be collecting so much more tax on
Absolutely.
these. And you see, Australia has
sovereign.
well, yeah, Australia, like in terms of tertiary education,
Yep.
people graduating university. Australia has lots of these people graduating university. I think we're 15th or so in the world. We have all the ingredients. You know, we have an educated population. We have the resources. We should be the richest.
Except our population's stupid, allowing this to happen.
Yeah, exactly. They're not politically aware enough.
No.
And we have we not only could be the richest, we have a duty to be more successful. All these countries are being forced to be vassal states of the United States. Look at Japan, look at Australia.
Like you went to the United States before this podcast came out. They didn't let you in.
Well, yeah, and so many of these countries, they're beholden. It's like, well, if we upset the US, who, like, what
There'll be a coup.
well, you know, what we're supposed to reach out to Russia?
America's never created a coup in any country, like Gough, for instance.
Exactly. So no wonder all these countries are
Poor
afraid.
Gough.
Yeah, Labour guys. Well, I don't see enough tears coming out of you.
I mean, I can't agree. I love what you said. Like, I mean, we do need to invest in our defence. It's got to be a smart investment. So
to stand up on our own two legs.
Yeah, exactly, right. So you cannot have that sort of independence that the community wants us to have if you don't invest in your own military and your own power. And it's a soft defensive power, right? So it's about saying they call it the Defence Department for a reason.
Well, not in America, Department of War.
I like them for being honest about that.
Yeah, same. It's really Orwellian.
Yeah.
No double talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the world hegemony, so maybe they're a little bit different in that regard. But yeah, we're a small to middle power, so we need to invest in our defence to provide a deterrent, right? So
I reckon you just buy the boxes.
Yeah.
So instead of getting the tanks, you
submarines,
just buy the boxes of the tanks. If it's just a deterrent.
just have some ambiguity as to
because you have no intent to use it. You just need the boxes. So if anyone comes and like, oh shit, they got tanks and missiles, because you don't intend to use it.
Yeah.
I think you can say that about the defence departments of most states. But look, there are intelligence experts that look at this, that make these decisions. I mean, I trust that they've made the right decision about
they all graduate from the School of Oxymoron, so yeah.
No, but Lambros, I think to be fair, yes, sure, there are people who know more about this topic than me and Peter. But
no, even me, right?
But the thing is, they aren't allowed to say a lot of this stuff. Like, can you imagine? Like Anthony Albanese absolutely can't say openly, "Hey, we need to become more independent, so we don't have to be a US vassal state." He just can't say that. It has to be people from the grassroots, like me and Peter, seeding this idea amongst people. Like, you can quickly get into a position. Even local government. I don't know how beholden you were. If you were going to say, we don't want to be a US vassal state, Peter Coolell or someone would have said, hey, Lambros, shut the fuck up.
I know my council have an opinion on everything.
Like, you know my name.
I know that Merri-bek likes to have an opinion on everything, including international politics. But no, look, I think that there's something to be said about information to the community about why we're making this purchase and why the American alliance is important. And I think sometimes governments don't communicate that as well as they should. And if there are discussions in the community about sort of, global events, what's occurring in the world, what's Australia's position in the world, and what we should be doing as a government, I mean, they're conversations to be had, right? But ultimately, ministers and governments will make the best decision for Australia with this community sentiment, community views, and security intelligence, and that occurs. And I'm fairly confident, and therefore I'm supporting the government's position on this matter, right? But talking about politics, right, and why people should take an interest in politics, I think that's what it goes to. Be informed, know the difference between the levels of government and where the decisions are made and how they're made. and participate in that in that forum. You know, that's what
and I was-
community should be doing.
I was never more confident, like when I was like, Martin Turnbull, Barnaby Joyce, 1-2 ticket, because like we were only like one heartbeat away from having Barnaby leading this country. Like,
Scary.
Not everyone's scary. Like he's a leader.
Actually, there's something. Do you want to chat? Lambros, did you hear the big news? By the way, did he actually? So
Has he defected?
yeah, I'm pretty sure. So
Really?
So
I think he's defecting to One Nation. Is that
yeah,
right?
so we have a few American listeners. So One Nation, their enemies would call them just a party solely based on racism and anti-immigration. And so Barnaby Joyce, the drunkard who Peter and I don't really like him. He's from the National Party, which is very rural. So yeah, he's defecting
But
now.
the thing about him, he even screws his own
Yeah,
secretaries.
but
Look, I would be. I mean, there were times when he was the acting prime minister. and
Yes,
was the deputy,
yes,
and
yes.
was kind of embarrassing for us. So to be honest, especially on the world stage, it was kind of embarrassing. But you get the governments you vote for, so
And deserve, as I say.
thankfully they were voted out of office.
well, I think the fact that he's defecting, it goes to show that it's acknowledging that One Nation is growing in popularity in Australia. Whether or not,
Or it might just be growing in his neck of the woods,
could
right?
be, yeah.
So,
But then always why I'm puzzled, obviously Peter and I don't have nice things to say about him, so I'm surprised, what, he's the hot new leader, to succeed Pauline. But I don't know, do you reckon, does he have
Sky News needs a new poster boy because they realised the LNP are dead. So they actually knew for their 70,000 subscribers who they have, they need a new poster boy. And the guy in the UK has already got a job, so he's the new face.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Look, thankfully they're not really involved. They don't get a big voter turnout here in Melbourne, or specifically here in this part of the world, in Merri-bek and the Wheels.
Did you get accosted by the guy at...
I got along with everybody. Sorry, not everybody, but in terms of the other candidates, we all got
Sorry,
along.
I
Yeah.
thought there was one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
different parts of Australia are very different, and I don't know, what his electorate is like in the Hunter Valley there. It's and these decisions could be made based on some of his support base on the ground. Other people could be encouraging him. I don't know. That's up to him.
I
And
think
I
it's
don't really
to maybe do a trifecta Simpsons quote. It's
Yeah.
when whites met bread.
I can remember this part.
Oh, it was when Homer designed the car.
Oh,
and his brothers.
the space
Yeah,
car.
yeah, and they were giving names for the car.
Yeah.
Use the term. His brother, which is Danny DeVito.
Oh.
It's like, when white met bread.
Okay. But actually, Peter, when you were mentioning getting accosted, I don't know if this is the guy you're thinking of. Lambros, you met him as well. Talking about Brunswick politics. So this One Nation supporter, Romeo, he was... So in the Brunswick West section where Lambros was running, so there was Ella from the Greens.
Part of the hood of Brunswick.
But then there was also, so Romeo Lawrencis, that's right. So he turned, they were in the middle of the debate, giving speeches, hello, I'm Lambros, this is what I stand for. This guy walks in wait. They said, this guy wasn't going to come along. He didn't reply, but he interrupted. He made sure he was known. It would have been 15 minutes late. He gives
at least, if not more.
Yes, he gives us, a rambling speech. He described
in the middle of yours.
In the middle of the forum, I would say.
He was saying that public housing. I don't know that we really want these ghettos here in Brunswick.
I don't think he convinced anyone. But ultimately, he was disqualified because not only was he late, but he didn't.
He didn't do the required training. Yeah.
He didn't do the required training. So.
Oh, he didn't fill in the form correctly, saying he did the training. Yeah.
But training for what?
Oh, to be a counsellor.
You have to do training.
No, I think.
Yeah, no, you do. It's
Wasn't
compulsory.
it? No, there was
an
some
online course.
It only took an hour. It was
That's right.
some sort of quiz, prove the
It's a
process.
little online course.
Yeah, okay.
It takes about an hour.
All right.
It just takes you through some of the very basic stuff. But you've got to complete it, and it logs that you have completed it. And when you go to nominate, it would have you've either done the training or you haven't done the training.
Right.
He just had.
Okay.
It's a requirement that is not new entirely, and when there was a requirement in the previous election, so he should have known about it. Most candidates right across Victoria that do have this problem, one or two did.
And then I noticed as well, so his posters, I saw two of his posters in my patch, our wards obviously don't overlap. And so,
Obviously.
well, number one, I thought it was puzzling that, like, why did he put his, why are people putting posters in my turf? And then I see as well, he has this website at the top. It was, what was it? climatechange.victoria. And like, that's not even a real URL that you can visit. And then, so I see him at the federal election, like 6 months later, supporting One Nation, who,
What was he before?
he was talking about climate change and how he wants the environment. And then he's proudly supporting One Nation, which is, they're climate deniers, essentially. Like, what? And I asked him, like, how do you explain this paradox? No, One Nation cares about the environment. I said, aren't you supporting, like, fossil fuel subsidies?
Is it like the libertarians supporting Pauline?
That crazy, yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, the beauty about our democracy is that anyone can nominate. But it's really important that the voters actually do their due diligence and pick the best person, right? So in this case, that person was not eligible, but quite often, people do make the ballot paper, and that's their right, and that's democracy. But going back to why you should care about politics is because there are all types of people with all different views, sometimes contradictory views, that do put their hand forward. There are people who don't have potentially the willingness to even do the job that they're running for sometimes, right? So on all levels of government, right, you need to really scrutinise the candidates, find out what they stand for, and don't make a mistake. If your vote's going to matter, it's got to be able to count for the person that's going to do the best job. And values comes into that, and that's why political parties come into that. But on the council level specifically, because unlike state and federal, council is a bit of a hybrid. It's not really a level of government, but it is. But it's not entirely a level of government. It's also like a board, like a corporate board, and runs services, and it's governed by some of the principles of a board. So you need to make sure that you vote for council candidates that are going to show up, do the job, which I said, particularly in Brunswick, is so difficult sometimes because, well, not difficult in a bad way, but it's so dynamic. And people were going to be results driven, get things done for the community, be approachable, and have the values that are going to, but you want to see represented on the council that can deliver those outcomes. So you need to take everyone's information, analyse it, scrutinise it, and make a decision, right? And it's not purely based on politics, because I have seen some really good Green councillors, and I've seen some Green councillors that are not any good. And I can say the same thing for the Labor councillors, and the same thing for independents. So, look, it really is more of an individual thing, but the party would guide the values of what they stand for. Now, in the state and federal election, then you're talking more about government and opposition. So the dynamics have changed again. In the lower house, you want to vote for the candidate who represents the political party that you want to form government. So you're voting for the premier, or you're voting for the prime minister, and
More idol worship.
And that's why we have a two-party system in a way, because the lower house is the house of government, and people tend to vote for the political party that they want to see form government. But in the upper house, both in Victoria and in the Australian Senate, it's more the house of review. So there's a lot more policy work. Legislative changes go through a committee process. There's a lot of stuff that could be seen quite tedious. Dotting the I's, crossing the T's, making sure it's perfect, and some really good policy work that can get done there. And I guess that's where minor political parties and independents, I feel, have a real role to play to keep government accountable. So the Westminster system, or our system of government, works really well, in my view, and everyone has a role to play. But as a voter, you need to sort of acknowledge and understand the way the system works, the levels of government, the levels of houses, who you're voting for, and vote accordingly.
So if I could, again, succinctly tie that down, local government, I'd have the view to say, I'd vote because this is ideally how I'd like to live, where state and federal, that's more idol worship voting.
No, I don't think it's got to do with idol worshipping or religion at all, right? But they say.
Well, again, you look at say your Trump figure or your Bob Hawke here, or you're voting for those individuals and what they represent. You're no longer voting for, as kind of, I believe from what you're saying, it's no longer just about the values and the policy, and then you have the review component of it. Where locally, it's ideally, it could be an independent that represents something, or you know what, I feel like in that allotment there, which is space, he's right. We should have a nuclear power plant.
Actually, I think you're right in the sense that on a local level, you have a look at the individuals you're voting for, because they're the one you're going to call when you need someone to fix the pothole, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they're active, involved, and engaged. So I think that's true, right? And on the state and federal election, you're voting for a government, you're voting for a party with a party platform. So policy is still very important. You should be voting on policy, not just the personality of who the leader is, but the policy platform. But in the lower house, you should be voting for the people you want to see form government.
Well, just as I normally do, we can all agree though that in the final rungs of the ScoMo government, Labor decided, and correctly so, politically, to not release any policy and just let ScoMo trip over himself and we'll just coast in. So sometimes, my point being proven that some voted ScoMo out and others said, this mob can't do any worse and let the adults at least come in to govern. Yeah. And that was a ruling, vibe, at least. And then they thought, well, are you guys going to do anything in your first term? And now they're waiting for the second term to say, we're waiting.
Yeah.
Look, you can only bet your opposition, right? So
totally. I'm just calling it as a play-by-play as I saw it in the last 10 years.
The Australian people have had enough of ScoMo and his government, and rightfully so.
Yes.
So I don't know what was going through the mind of people who rocked up on that polling booth that day. Some of them were voting to just get rid of ScoMo, that's true.
No, 100%.
But some others might have actually taken the effort to have a look
But
at
I think we can
policy
also agree that Labor said absolutely FA leading up, and rightly so, they played it politically, straight bat, we're just sitting here waiting for a Bradbury win.
I will admit to this, that Bill Shorten took a stronger policy platform to the election than the Albanese.
Yeah.
I will admit to that. But that doesn't mean that the Labor Party hadn't done the work. It had a platform and it had policies, and it's implementing those. Now, the first term of any government is a bit slower, but you're seeing some really good changes coming through, and the legislative agenda is now starting to be seeing that second term really strongly, particularly on things like housing. And on things that were really blocked by some of the minor parties.
I haven't seen anything on housing yet, because and we're also going to if we're going to pick housing, I'll bring it up. Some of the housing that they've built are the houses for the US contractors, right? So again, I'm happy to hear sound bites, but I will pick them up. So,
I remember there was that housing thing. You remember when Tanya Plibersek was, sitting in the placeholder of Environment Minister. There was defence housing approved near Darwin. The last known habitat of the Gordian finch, the colourful bird on the ViewSonic logo, the last known habitat, wiped away because, we've got to make some room for some defence housing. Northern Territory is not short on space. And here we are wiping out this habitat.
I'm not specifically aware about that example.
You can't. Don't stop picking on the man. That's something that he can't actually respond to. He's a guest here.
Sorry, but going back to the local level. So sorry, why I brought up Romeo, I see it as this paradox where good on him, good on anyone for having a shot, making sure that it's not the two-party system forever. But I find it unfortunate that you meet, let's just call him a crazy person. That's the view that
shaming mental illness. I've told you.
Many minor parties that many people wouldn't vote for Fusion because of this fear. I've never heard of Fusion. They must be one of those crazy people.
I said that. Look, I'm probably not going to put in that term, but
he incriminates himself back from it.
But then, wouldn't you encourage people? I mean,
I would encourage people
the candidate
to acknowledge that in an election,
there's a diversity.
There's a diversity of candidates.
Of nuts.
and your job as a voter is to find out who's who and select the best one.
And have a EpiPen close by.
Well, but then as well, the candidate forum itself, I remember it would have only been 100 people in the audience. And it's such a good way. I mean, people could ask their own questions. You can scratch the surface.
Now,
a bit. Yeah.
would you vote for a local representative that turns up 20 minutes late? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
No,
So-
he's self-incriminated there anyway.
You
so.
know, so look, we can talk about Romeo, which I think is a little bit unfair to some degree because there's many Romeos right across the state who put their
Where
hand
are
up.
they?
But there's many candidates, right, like that, right across the state who put up their hand. So it really is about reading the literature and going to those forums and finding out who you're actually voting for.
It's such a quick way of learning about these people. And yeah, if you're unsure, ask them a question.
And you know,
yeah.
it is.
Or
it's a
become a
quick-
candidate yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if you love your community, become a candidate. Like, I mean, no one knows the electorate better or your local area better than the people who live there.
I will
So
find the time.
we want
Yeah.
to see the council representative actually live and be from that community that they represent. Because, I mean, you know, people told me I should, this area is going to be very green and I should go further north, right? And
Say again?
this area, Brunswick,
Yeah.
was likely, people were likely to vote on party lines only.
Oh, as in green the government.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Green candidates were likely to be elected right
but
across
yeah,
the board,
would you
which
be
is what
saying-
happened,
Did
right?
the Labor people tell you that?
No. Community people
Oh,
said.
But you'd be seen as a fraud like further north, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Like-
community people said go further north, and I sort of said, look,
Not my people.
I want to represent my area where I live, my family lives, my community lives, the area I know, and what drives me to actually do a good job and be responsive is seeing
That's your
the
motivation.
great facilities improve. It's when I go to a family sort of gathering and someone says, I went to the Brunswick Baths and I used them, it was great. How amazing is it, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, you are going to do the best job and you're going to be the best representative if you live and breathe that community, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, you're invested.
and this is something
many
you should
ways.
be looking
Yeah.
for when you're voting for council elections. Now, again, it's different for state and federal because they're bigger areas. The local aspect isn't there as much as local council. Like we say, local council is the government that's closest to the people. I know it's a cliche, but we do say that. And, you know, you're meant to be able to pick up the phone and call your local councillor and get them to come down to your neighbourhood and have a look at the issues and all of that kind of stuff. A state and federal member that represents 100,000 people, 50,000 people, you know, has a different role. They can't do that for everyone. So you're looking at a different skill set in your representatives there, and you look at the party formation because you're not voting for an individual, you're voting for a government, someone who's going to form government. So you really want to be voting for the political party, its platform that you think is best. So that's Labor or Liberal.
Interesting,
the lower-
interesting though that you said someone who's going to form government. So by a statement, it's like, so therefore you're wasting your vote if you don't vote LNP or Labor. It's inherent in your statements.
How many representatives do we have that are not from those two major?
No. So inherently,
in the lower house.
Inherently, but it's a point that I have a go at Owen often, and even in the previous podcast, because he likes to bash the Greens a bit. And I said, well, I said, since when have the Greens ever really been in power and had power? So it's anything that's at fault in Australia is at the hands of Labor or LNP. Self-incriminating
actually,
there too.
Everything that's been achieved is also at the hands
So
predominantly of
again,
Labor.
so hence, back to the dystopian versus non-dystopian world that we were discussing about before in movies. Imagine how much better the world would have been if we only compare it with what we actually know now, as far as a parallel world, which could have been better if, for instance, we had a mining tax. And in fact, we didn't just say, the world, we lost that, so therefore we won't have the political will to do what we can do because we have no leadership capabilities.
I'm a bit lost. Sorry.
He knows what I'm talking about.
I think that we all need to be striving to push our politicians
Yeah,
and our political
100%.
parties and be more involved, right?
100%.
This is right across the board.
Yeah.
But
I don't subscribe to, the boat sank, but I didn't drown. It's like the boat shouldn't have sunk, right?
Yeah.
To say this is what could have been, this is what we've achieved. We get some sort of royalties. No.
Yeah.
It's ours. I get back to the point you made before. It is ours. We should have a national fund,
Yeah.
trust fund.
I think
and
actually,
most countries do through their resources,
Yeah.
to contribute a sovereign wealth fund that contributes their resources to the future, right? So, I mean, these are things to look to, but this is a more sort of complicated
100%. But that's
issue.
my point.
That's not my area of speciality.
No, I get it. But it's more so
but it's
the
something that
discussion we keep having where everyone likes to say, oh, the minor party this, the minor party that. No, those in charge, they're the ones that need to, back to your original point, why I picked that up on that, if you have real, true leadership, whether there are points in some of our history where even Gough tried to do something, and as a nation, we should say, well, what's in our interest? We talk about just from a national perspective. It is ours. This is what we should be doing. There is no real leadership. And will.
On that point, Lambros, on your point of parties that can form government and actually get things done. You might not agree, but I see it as like if we elect a minor party, sure, they might not be able to form government at this election. All the other electorates might not be voting the same as you. But, we have to start somewhere.
Can I also then put it in a very lower tier, but it's not lower in the essence. It's like affirmative action in getting women on particular roles and boards.
Yeah.
Unless you create the opportunity to give someone to say, you know what, I know I have the capabilities, but now that they've got 3 seats there allocated for just my minority, I will apply because I know I've got a chance of getting it, right? So then they can impact and then others, and it'll grow.
Yeah.
So you have to create that space. So to your point as well, unless you create the space to allow even minorities to get in there, which goes back to the original point we made earlier about Labor and Liberal, they created an issue for funding to even prevent them to get on board now in the race.
But we do have that space in the upper house, the House of Review, where it's more policy oriented as opposed to looking after particular electorates. So, what produces these 2-party systems is the voting system, right?
Yeah.
So each electorate is one person to be elected. And then there are other systems where there is multi people elected, right? So
Tasmania,
like Tasmania, and you get more diversity in that sense. So the Senate or the Legislative Council in Victoria are sort of multi-member systems, right? So in our area, you vote for 5 people. So it won't be dominated by the 2 major political parties. But the lower house is about government, and therefore it sort of is 2 parties and who's going to form government. Labor or Liberal coalition, right? But there is room for that political diversity in those opinions, and I think that they're very important to keep governments of all colours sort of accountable, and that's in the upper house.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder, thinking about you said before, if you care about the area, if you want to look after that area, one of the aims of the podcast is to inspire people to become more politically involved, politically active. So what would you pitch to someone who's thinking about getting involved? Why would they join Labor as opposed to starting their own party, joining meetings?
Great question. I was thinking you were going to ask me why they should run for council, but I guess both of them, look, I'll take the council one first. I think you should put your hand up to represent the area you represent if you want to contribute towards that area, right? And you've got the time and the energy to do so. And I think it's very rewarding. I got a lot out of it. I really enjoyed sort of representing the community and participating in all the activities that the community provides, meeting everyone, listening, and you really have a fair bit of power for your council to make small changes that mean a lot to the local area, right? So the Lambros Community Centre and a whole range of other things. So I think that there's a level there where people should be engaged in and involved in. Now, broadly more political parties, I think you should join the political party that you most align with. You're not going to get 100% alignment. That would be weird. Political parties are diverse in themselves. You can't find, and it would be, a bit unusual if you found a political party where you agreed with them 100%.
It's your own party.
There's a diversity of views, but you've got to find a political party that you want to work with him to achieve the change you want to see. So I would say that if you look at the record in government, Labor delivers, and for me, the appeal always was not about being an individual representative, but being part of a team, a Labor team that gets things done, either on the council, and I think that's the same for people who nominate for state and federal politics. It's about being part of a government with an agenda, a policy platform that delivers. I think that there might be other people that want to be more of an activist sort of role, want to raise issues for debate, and they might be attracted to a minor party. But that wasn't me. When I sort of sat there and saw my parents struggle over, the issues that they were facing at work or the cost of pressure, things that they were dealing with, I knew that, change came from government. Change came from having a Labor government. So I knew then I needed to hand out, and I was so passionate about making sure that, we defeated the Kennett government. We elected a Brax government, right, back in, showing my age a little bit, back in the 99 campaign. And I've always had that same level of passion and enthusiasm, right, till today, because I do believe a Labor government is better than a Liberal national government. And I don't think you would probably disagree with that, but the change I want to see made can be made through that forum.
If we think about the minor parties in the system, though,
Yeah.
would you acknowledge that minor parties can raise issues, and then like Liberal and Labor, I see them as very status quo, very mainstream, and then so you have parties like Legalise Cannabis who raise issues for discussion.
Yeah.
And would you agree this is how some changes get made? The fact that minor parties bring them up.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's a role to play there for minor parties. But it depends on the attitude you take. So one of my criticisms of the Greens is instead of being a progressive partner of Labor and supporting Labor on the ground as well in the lower house, for example, they see themselves as an opposition. They see themselves as someone who wants to replace Labor. And they tend to spend all of their time, energy and resources unseating progressive Labor candidates. And that's not the best use. The best use is potentially running in the upper house where you can make a lot of change to the policy platforms. And I'll say this, in Victoria, if you remember Fiona Tutton, who was an upper house member of Parliament, very successful.
She was running for Legalise Cannabis recently.
Yeah. And she served a couple of terms in the upper house, and she got through a large amount of progressive policy reforms. I can sort of go into them and name it, but really difficult reforms.
But you're saying it's because she worked with Labor.
And she didn't just do what the government wanted. She worked with the government around improving the legislative agenda. She engaged in the process and she made it better. And I think that was a very productive role. And you see that in the outcome. You see that in the outcome of what she got done, right? So a whole range of things from the criminalising the sex industry, medical marijuana, a whole range of reforms, even the first round of euthanasia reforms that went through. Now, I try to have a look at what the Greens have achieved, and I really can't see it. I can't see it because their attitude has not been one of being productive. It's been one of being oppositional. We are opposed to Labor. We want to replace them. And because more or less in the lower house in particular, it is a two-party system. Anything that really attacks the progressive side of politics only empowers the conservative side of politics. So I don't think they've been very productive in that role. But I think they can be very productive in the upper house. And I think many other small parties can as well.
What if we went further? What if we said the Greens should not only stop attacking Labor, what if the Greens just stayed silent and let Labor do its thing? You're saying that...
I think the Greens should run and should contest and put themselves up, but I think their focus should be the upper house. I don't think they should be focusing all their resources on unseating progressive members who are doing a good job in Canberra and unseating... progressive members are doing a good job.
I'm just curious. I have no view on that because I really don't care about the Greens or Labor, to be honest. But I'm just curious on the term. We keep saying the word progressive Labor. What's the difference between Labor and progressive Labor?
Look, I use the term a little bit progressive in the sense of to differentiate from the Conservatives, as in Labor, Liberal coalition. Labor tends to sit sort of centre-left, and the Libs and Coalition tend to sit sort of centre-right.
So why isn't Labor left anymore?
Well, it is, but it's all relative, isn't it, right? So it's left compared to ScoMo, compared to the political parties.
So again, because I've been listening, obviously, and there's been a lot of discussion about what Labor is, as in it's not the Greens, and it's what Labor is where it's not the LNP. And I tried to bring an example about like even the ACTU and what I've heard from them in relation to what Labor isn't, because I don't see them as really representing the workers anymore. I don't think anyone really thinks they represent the workers anymore. And again, yes, they're not quite ScoMo, but they're not really workers. And, you know, using the term progressive Labor to me is like waving a democratic Republic of Congo flag to say, you know what, we are a democracy, we are a republic, it's not a dictator behind you. Don't bother. So, you know, it's like Tony Blair's Labor I'm hearing right now.
No. Look, I use it in the sense to differentiate from the Libs, right?
Just say Labor, because it doesn't sound like LNP.
So Labor, right?
Yeah. That's the Libertarians actually changed their name too.
The centre-left party, Labor, right? Tends to deliver the change that we have seen that I'm supportive of, right? Whether that's Medicare, whether that's a whole range of other things around social justice and so forth, right? And it is about workers' rights, and it has a record on workers' rights. So you can debate, and it's very subjective as to how far a policy has gone and whether a different approach should have been taken. But at the core, I think that there is a political party that has its roots in the workers' movement.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And it has a good positive agenda for the country. And then you have a Liberal Party, which has a different agenda, right? So the difference might be small in some things. Some things they might agree with. But overall, they tend to be small government. They don't invest in services. They close schools and they close...
No, I get that. But you could also do a correlation of when Labor's in power and when they're not. And it's usually also, you do another timestamp of when there's a depression, a war, a recession. And it's quite funny that Labor always comes in when they need to have the government aligned to get the workers to do something, either take a wage cut, go to war. It's usually aligned to that. So I'm not making the connection. I'm just saying there is a significant correlation with that correlation of aligning to the workers. I'm just saying it.
Well, we have Labor governments now, right? And we thankfully don't.
Yeah, but we don't have Labor anymore. That's my point. We have progressive Labor. And then I dropped the microphone and I'm gone.
Okay. Actually, finishing up. Lambros, so council, that I guess that's your previous life. Can we expect to see you in Canberra sometime? What's next for you?
What's next? I mean, look, I'm interested in a whole range of
finishing next year.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. Yeah. Have you been to the US before?
I have been to the US, yeah. I was there for the first time, actually, a couple of years ago, just for 10 days, presenting at a conference, and I really enjoyed the US. I don't know if I would want to live there.
Okay, never been.
I think it's kind of scary to know that everyone carries a gun. It's not something I could get used to.
Oh, no.
Everyone could carry
a gun. I used to live in New York. It's not that bad. But you know, speaking back to your personal goals.
It's been a good year for me in the sense that I've been able to reflect and do different things. So I've been following some other passions. I've been doing some research.
You're studying?
I'm studying, doing a PhD at the University of Melbourne in archaeology.
Wow.
So that's something that I've always had. Another passion of mine that I haven't really progressed up until now. So having the time to sort of rethink and rebalance has given me that opportunity. I do enjoy representing people and public office. I will not be nominating for anything anytime soon, but I don't rule it out into the near future. I do have community members constantly say to me, you know, you can run again, you need to run again, we need you back on the council, or, you know, we want you to run for another level of government. I mean, you hear that from community a fair bit, that you've got to balance it all out at the end of the day, and I'll give some true consideration if opportunities came up, but at the moment I'm really happy with doing a little bit of work. I work part-time, and focusing most of my time on study and research.
Well, you can do a campaign manager for the number 1 and 2 tickets for whoever will run for council.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I look forward to that, and wish you well in your campaigns. You know.
Okay, well, Lambros Tapinos, thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks.